I'm Rebecca Jane and welcome to Midlands at Home. On this week's show, we're going to be looking at buy-to-lets and how to make money in the buy-to-let industry. Plus, talking holiday homes and finding out what was voted the top 10 places to own a holiday home in the UK. Intrigued? We'll find out more a little bit later on in the show. Our guest this week is Matthew Moore from Edwards Moore, the estate agency in Walsall. Matthew, welcome. 6 weeks ago, you were sat here on the sofa.
It doesn't feel like 6 weeks, does it?
Doesn't time fly?
It certainly does.
And loads of sunshine since then as well.
Absolutely.
We were talking residential sales, but your company also deals a lot with lettings as well.
Yes, we do. Yes, we've got quite a large lettings department with all sorts of different tenancies in there, all sorts of different types of properties and what have you. So, yeah, we see the whole gambit in that respect.
Yeah, and what would be your, if you're perhaps thinking of buying a buy-to-let and you're starting at the very beginning, what would be your top tips in purchasing your buy-to-let?
I think there's never a right answer as such. Different people have different needs and different desires. The one thing I would always say if you're buying a buy-to-let is feel as though you could live in it, because if you could live in it, then generally speaking, a tenant can live in it. Okay. So, you know, everybody has similar sort of needs and wants. So if you like it, then somebody else will like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose you think with your residential, it's always about location, get your location right first. Is that always the case with the buy-to-let, that you've got to think of the location?
I think it is very important. Yeah, a lot of people like town centres, for instance, and transport networks is the key as well. There's a certain areas, particularly around Walsall, which is where we're based, of course, where you've got very good train stations, so the access into Birmingham is very good, and they tend to be very popular as far as the buy-to-lets are concerned. Yeah. Or if you're on the main roads where you've got good bus services and what have you, again, we don't tend to have too much difficulty finding tenants for that type of property.
Yeah, and it's a really busy time at the moment. So many agents are saying actually they haven't got enough rental properties on their books. Do you find that with your agency?
Absolutely, yes, indeed. We've got an awful lot of tenants who are looking for properties and are having to wait, unfortunately. The difficulty is that there's such pressure on the housing market generally, of course. There's been a lack of properties that have been built over the last few years, and there's an awful lot of people who are turning to long-term renting rather than actually purchasing properties. Yeah. So the first-time buyers that we would have seen 10 or 15 years ago are actually waiting that much longer before they buy properties, so they're renting in the meantime, of course.
Yeah, I think you're right. There are people that will, you know, my brother has rented for years and is actually really happy, really settled and quite happy with renting, so popular on both fronts, I suppose.
Definitely. Well, again, in Europe, it tends to be more of the norm. We're a little bit different to the rest of Europe, where we want to buy our own property. We want our castle, if you like. So, yes, I think there is certainly a move towards more people spending longer in rented properties. So they want to make sure it's right and stay there for a long period of time, of course.
What about furnishing? So you've got your buy-to-let, and I think it's, you know, is it good to furnish it so it's fully furnished? I suppose you get a little bit more, or actually do you find that people like to put in their own belongings?
I think that is very location-based, purely and simply because if you're buying a property in a town centre or a city centre or somewhere like that, where people are going to be for a short period of time, they're moving for work for a 6-month period, then yes, you will find that they will want to move in and just bring their clothes and start living. Whereas if you're looking at a family type home where people are going to want to live there for a few years, and, you know, a 3-bedroom semi or a 4-bed detached, then often they will have their own furniture, or they'll want to furnish it themselves because they'll want to put their mark on it. So it does depend on the area, and it depends on the market that you're aiming that buy-to-let at. Yeah.
Don't you think people used to think of buy-to-lets as, you know, with the investments as actually need to have a lot of money, or need to be rich, need to have, you know, so much in order to do that? But it's not the case now, is it?
It's not. No, finance is very much available as far as buy-to-lets are concerned. Lenders like buy-to-lets because they know that it's a fairly safe bet, of course, because they know that their borrowing will be covered by the rental income that the landlord will be receiving. So very often you'll find that a lot of lenders will lend 75% of the property value. So if you bought a property at £100,000, then you only have to find £25,000 and you've got the income from a £100,000 property, of course.
I think that's why some people are using that as sort of pension pots now, aren't they, with buy-to-lets?
Well, with the pensions changing, of course, I think a lot of people want to look after their own money. And buying a property, you know, your money's always safe in bricks and mortar is the old adage. So, you know, a lot of people will like it in that respect. And you get good income from it, of course, and the capital growth.
Exactly. Now, we talk about capital growth, yields. Can you break this down a little bit for us on what it means?
Yes, certainly. I mean, the yield is the income that you're getting for that property.
Yep.
So the easy way of putting it is if you go to a bank and you invest your money in a bank, they will give you an interest rate.
Okay.
So they will pay you money based on the interest rate that they're offering.
Yeah.
In property, that's the income that you're getting based on the investment that you've made.
Right.
So, for instance, if you buy a £100,000 property and you get £6,000 a year, your yield is 6%.
Right.
If that makes
yes,
sense.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That helps.
So the capital growth is the amount that the property increases in value during the period of your ownership.
Yes.
So if you buy it at £100,000 and you sell it 5 years later for £150,000, then your capital growth is £50,000.
So I suppose perhaps a way around that is getting a house that might need a little bit of work, and then you can hopefully gain that end as well.
Absolutely. It's a very good way of doing it, I think. Buy a property which isn't particularly popular at the moment, buy it at a realistic price, spend some money on it, improve it. So straight away you increase the value of it, of course.
Yeah.
Rent it out for a period of time. Hopefully the market keeps moving in a northerly direction. And then eventually you can obviously reap the rewards whilst you've still been getting an income from it, of
I
course.
suppose it's a safer bet, isn't it, knowing that if the house needs a little bit of work, perhaps a safe option as well.
And also, tenants like properties which have been newly improved, of course. So from a rental point of view, from our point of view as a letting agent, it makes it very easy for us to let them when it's got a brand new kitchen, brand new bathroom, new central heating.
Things won't go wrong, perhaps.
Exactly,
yeah,
indeed. So, you know, you often find that you've got your choice of tenants then, which is always a nice position to be in as a landlord.
Definitely, yeah. Now, two-bedroom properties seem to be a really popular purchase, I suppose. Low maintenance costs, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it depends on the landlord and what they want. Some landlords are fairly handy, so they'll buy older properties. Others think, well, I don't want anything to do with it. So if you bought an apartment or something along those lines, you've obviously got a service charge. So all the external maintenance is taken care of. And again, fairly easy to rent out, and nice, clean and tidy properties.
And you've got one here, haven't you? 5 Mellish Park, which you can see here, 84 Mellish Road in Walsall, offers in the region of 149,950. Explain a little bit about what this one offers.
Well, again, you've got a nice modern 2-bedroom apartment with ensuite, so
good to go, isn't it?
It is, definitely, definitely. Yeah, super kitchen there.
Yeah, lovely.
Bathrooms are lovely. So you're aiming that very much at the professional tenant, if you like, people who are moving for work or need to be in the area for work reasons, and a very good market for it. Now, if you buy one of those properties to rent, you always have to look at the service charge and take that into consideration.
Yes.
It's the landlord's responsibility to pay that service charge. So effectively, the amount of that service charge comes off your rent before you work out the yield, if you like.
Yeah, so it's important to really factor that in when you're actually doing the purchase, work out all the sums. But that's a great one, good to go, you know, looks brand new. How old is that one?
That's about 8 years old.
Yeah, it looks brilliant. So that's one 2-bed. Another, so that one's on at 149,950. Totally different property, 60 Segundo Road in Walsall. Now this is 124,950, and this is a 2-bed semi.
That's it. Yeah, that one's in a nice spot because you're very near to Cambridge train station, which obviously gives very easy direct access straight into Birmingham city centre. What we're finding is a lot more people are renting as couples. And you tend to find that couples like houses. They like the outside space, they like the parking.
Young families, you've got the garden. Actually, the kitchen goes onto the garden with this property, doesn't it? Which is great, with a young family perhaps in mind as well.
And also they like entertaining, of course, where the garden comes into it very much so. So, it's horses for courses, and it just depends on what people want to go for and what their preferences are to a certain
What about
extent.
parking? See, this one here, it's got the driveway. It looks like you could fit several cars. That's another factor, isn't it, really, to consider when you haven't got the hassle, I suppose, of off-street parking, that you've got a driveway.
Absolutely. We rent an awful lot of properties that are more town centre based, of course, so Victorian terraced houses where parking can be an issue. So, you know, if you're a couple and you maybe have a teenage child or something along those lines, you might need 3 parking spaces or more even.
Definitely. Yeah.
So if you're renting in an area which is already fairly congested, then it might be difficult. So parking is certainly an issue.
Yeah, and what do you find out of 2, 3, 4 beds? What have you got a shortage of at the moment?
Everything.
Oh, really? Everything.
Everything. We have an awful lot of tenants who are looking for properties. There's people who are moving up the housing ladder through the rental route. So, you know, they started off in a 2-bedroom property. They've then had children. They're moving up to a 3-bedroom property and then onwards.
Yeah.
So it's across the board, really. There's a lack of good quality rental stock available, unfortunately, at the moment. So really, if anybody is looking out there to buy a buy-to-let, now's a brilliant time to be doing it.
Definitely. I think especially with the sunshine, people are thinking more of moving or doing things, you know. So talking about lovely weather, actually, we had a barbecue the other day for the bank holiday. Good old British weather. Keep going on, don't we? And we're talking about holiday lets after the break as well, which should be interesting.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So don't go anywhere. We will be talking about buy-to-lets, of course, plus finding out what was voted the top 10 place in the UK to own a holiday. So grab yourself a cup of tea and I'll see you in a moment. Welcome back. Now, there was an article from the Daily Mail online saying that across England and Wales, nearly 1.6 million people have a second property in a different area to where they live permanently. About 11% of these are used as holiday homes, with the remainder being used for purposes such as work or accommodation for student children. Nick Abraham of Direct Line said that holiday homes are very valuable to owners as they are often a place to relax and spend quality time with loved ones. We'll shortly be revealing the top 10 places to own a holiday home in the UK, but first, talking about holiday homes, Matt, this is something that you know quite a lot about because you have one, don't you?
Yes, indeed. Yes, we're fortunate to have a family home down in South Devon, which is delightful, really, when the sun shines.
Yeah. So where is it?
It's just outside Salcombe, down in the South Hams. So a beautiful part of the world.
It is really beautiful down there. And when you go down there with the family, what do you enjoy about the area?
Obviously, there's all the beaches and what have you, which is great. The kids just love it down there, and there's so much to do when the sun is shining. Unfortunately, we were down there the Jubilee week, and the weather was just awful. So we exhausted all of the rainy things to do that week, to say the least.
Yes.
But we love visiting different towns and what have you.
All the little knick-knacky shops, haven't you?
Absolutely, yes. My wife absolutely adores those,
yes,
of course.
Me too.
And the kids love going on boat trips, and you've just got the beach. You know, we can literally go and spend all day on the beach, and the kids are entertained, and we can have a bit of a relax, and fantastic.
Always nice. So we'll see whether that comes up in the top 10. So we're talking about now holiday lets, another popular choice, because of course you get to rent out your property, plus you get to enjoy the property if you want to. Do you find people tend to do that? They do use the property as a holiday let for themselves, and then, you know, certain parts of the year they will then allow it to be rented out? Yes,
absolutely. I think, again, it depends on personal preference to a certain extent. You always have to remember when you're renting your property out, the times that you're renting it out, you're not using it. And the flip side of that is when you are using it, you're costing yourself income, of course.
Yes.
And often, most people want to use it at the busiest times, which is when you get the best return.
Yeah.
Return will vary from week to week. So certain parts of the year, you'll have to reduce your rates. And then at the busy times of the year, obviously, you can increase the rates. It's just a general supply and demand issue, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you do have to be careful, because often if people have got families that want to use it at half term, but you're letting go of a very good opportunity to maximise your investment there, of course. So it's a balance.
Yeah, so sometimes it could be higher, sometimes it can be lower, so just work out the whole of the 12 months, maybe figure out where you'd have your holidays and work it all out accordingly from there.
Absolutely.
What about furnishings then? Is this something that, as I suppose, the holiday let is going to need to be totally furnished from the off?
Yep, totally furnished. Again, it's a balance thing. You can go crazy. My sister had a property that she used as a holiday let, and she had Bang & Olufsen television in there, and original arm paintings and what have you, and I felt that was arguably a little bit too far. But people do want a nice environment, of course. course.
Yeah.
So they will want the modern conveniences that they'll expect for it in a hotel or that they've got in their own homes.
I suppose you can charge more then, can't you? If you are going to put in all the posh furnishings, then you're going to be able to command a little bit more with
Absolutely.
So.
And again, it depends on the area to a certain extent. You know, certain towns will command better holiday yields, if you like, so you can put better furnishings in there.
And I suppose if you look at perhaps one that's on the coast, if you've got one with views of the sea, then obviously you are going to be paying more for it in the instance, but then you are going to be fetching that little bit more perhaps when it looks at a sort of income in terms of a holiday let as well. So
definitely.
Location's really important.
Very much so. I know when I go on a holiday, if I can see the sea, I feel that much that much better. But you've also got the capital growth as well, of course.
True.
I always say that there's only so much coastline in this country, so they can't continue building on it too much. So you know, as the demand increases for people who want sea views, then really price increases as well, of course.
And spoilt beauty, isn't it?
Definitely.
Which is lovely. Right, we are going to be looking at the top 10 places. We've been waiting to find out what are the top 10 places. What do you reckon then? Where do you reckon Salcomb's come? Do you reckon it's coming top 10?
I'm not sure really, because again, I think there's somewhere like Salcombe, there's not many properties available, of course, and a lot of them people have owned for years and years and passed down through the family. So,
so my friend, her parents have got a 2-bed, and it literally, you know, looks right out onto the water. It's beautiful. And they don't rent it out; they just use it for themselves. And they are always down there on long weekends. I mean, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So right, top 10, big drum roll, is Burnham Market in Norfolk. Number 9 is Filey in Yorkshire. Number 8 is Salcombe. It's come up number 8. Number 7, Beverley in Yorkshire. Nice. Yorkshire's lovely, isn't it? Number 6, Newport in Wales. And the top 5, okay, so the top 5, Skegness is coming at number 5.
Very nice.
Always popular, isn't it, with families?
Yeah,
always
it
a popular
has been
place.
for a long time.
Yeah, I think it always will be. Windermere, I love Windermere, one of my favourite places.
Not coastal though, which is the first one that isn't coastal.
Yeah, true actually. Yeah, it is. It's like my friend got married in Windermere. It's just pretty all year round. It's just really pretty, isn't it?
It is very much so.
Okay, the top 3. Holt in Norfolk has come up as number 3, which of course is a lovely market town. It's about 22 miles north of Norwich. And of course with the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and of course with their young family now living in that sort of area, then very, very popular indeed.
Charlotte will love it.
I know. Wonderful news, wonderful news. Number 2, Abersoch in North Wales. We were chatting a little bit about this earlier on, weren't we? Village Seaside Resort, wonderful beaches, beautiful scenery and internationally recognised for sailing.
A lot of Midlanders have second homes in that part of North Wales.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's very easy to get to from here, of course.
Yeah.
Just down the M54 and the A5.
Easy getaway.
And absolutely. So, yeah, there's a lot of people who I know who have properties around there and again use them very regularly.
Yeah, that's it. It's nice to escape, isn't it, sometimes for a weekend?
Beautiful part of the world away as well, Snowdonia.
Yeah, it is lovely. So that was number 2. Number 1. Right, what do you reckon number 1 is? Number 1, top place to have a holiday home is St Ives in Cornwall. Fantastic. There we go. See, I used to go to St Ives in Cornwall, you know, sort of year after year with my parents. I used to love all the little sort of shops with my mum, and my dad used to just sit there for hours and look at the boats. So it was always a really popular place for us to go to as a family. It's a lovely seaside town.
It is beautiful.
Pretty.
And near Poldark country as well, of course.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, it's lovely because the harbour sort of, the town arcs around the harbour, doesn't it? So, you know, it's just really beautiful, and it's just got, I think, something for everybody.
Absolutely. I don't know St Ives very well, unfortunately.
Oh, you've
but
got to go.
I must go.
Yeah,
yes,
you have
indeed.
now.
We'll have to do that. We'll have to peel ourselves away from Salcombe one year.
Yes, that's it, I know. So, of course, with you owning, you know, a place that you tend to use a lot for yourself, actually, for your own use, what would be your top 3 tips if you're purchasing a holiday home?
If you're looking to rent it out and rent it out for holiday lets, then obviously location is the key. You want to be somewhere where if you went on holiday, if you were going to rent a property, where you'd want to be, if you like. So that's number 1, like any house purchase, location, of course.
Yeah.
Number 2, I would say, is how you furnish it. Again, it's all about how people would want to be there. It's a home away from home, if you like. If they're renting it for a couple of weeks, they want to feel like they can just move in and start living and not have to think, well, we're going to have to move that from there and move that from there. So, you know, be very general about how you furnish it and about how you place those furnishings.
Okay, so location, furnishings, and then your third.
And then thirdly, again, if you're looking to rent it out for a period of time, I think you have to really know how you're going to manage that letting.
Yeah.
So if you're going to employ an agent in the area, make sure that they're going to look after it for you, make sure they're going to do inventories between occupancies, if you like, make sure they're going to get the bed linen washed, the towels washed, and so when you do go down there, you haven't got any nasty surprises. If you're not going to use an agent, and an awful lot of people don't these days, they'll manage it online, they'll market it online and what have you, and maybe they'll have a cleaner down there who will do the same job. That's fine, but again, it's going to be more work for you.
Yeah, I suppose once you've got it all set up from the off, whether you are going to do it yourself, whether you're going to go, you know, sort of through an agent, and you get it up and running, you soon kind of find your feet. 'Cause I suppose for anyone thinking of buying either a buy-to-let, you know, your typical buy-to-let, or a holiday home, there's a lot to think about in the beginning, isn't there? You're thinking about location, thinking about furnishing. Do I use an agent? Do I do it all myself? There's a lot to think about. But I imagine once it's all sorted, like with the place that you've got, it's so well worth it, isn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant from our point of view, because we can just get in the car and put our clothes in and away
Home
we
from
go.
home.
Everything's down there, of course, which is just fantastic. And again, you build things up as you go down there. You'll buy something and think, well, we'll use that again. So you know, it's very worthwhile investing in things to a certain extent. So no, I mean, we absolutely love it. It's just, again, making sure that the weather's nice, which
you can't always just say, you can't always rely on that.
No.
Now, do you find when people are coming in perhaps to your agency and they're looking at a buy-to-let, whether it's going to be that, you know, that they're looking at a holiday-let nor buy-to-let, do you find people get that one property, or will they use that deposit and maybe split it 3 ways and get 3 buy-to-lets?
I would say if you're looking at buying property as an investment, I would say, if you're doing it purely for investment, buy a single property that you're going to rent out on a long-term basis, and often something that's closer to you, and then build it up from there. As you're paying the mortgage off, then obviously you'll build up some equity in the property, and maybe utilise that equity at a later stage to go and buy another one. Again, if it was me, I would certainly look to build a portfolio of properties if I was wanting an income, or to use it for my pension. And then obviously try different things, so maybe try holiday lets as later down the line, if you like.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We shall see you soon. You take care, and I will see you next time for more on Midlands at Home.